Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon. Welcome to Luxembourg. Thank you. There was a nice video. Well, now, let me go in reverse. I don't normally do this till the very end, but let me give that round of applause to the organizers, because this event, since 2018, has just grown. Here in Luxembourg, the space industry has been important for decades, but of course, Space Resources Week was put on the map in 2018, and look at the community now. Every year, bigger ambitions, bolder ambitions, and they're coming to fruition, and we're going to discuss that and so much more over the course of the next few days. And all of this comes off the back of a professional weekend, which was led by Kathryn Hadler, of course, the director of ESRIC, and also Abu Angel Madrid, who is present here from Colorado School of Mines. We have so many people here representing 35 countries, agencies, law. We're going to discuss law in earnest tomorrow afternoon. There's so many different factors when it comes to space resources, and we try to tackle many of them here, and burgeoning industries as well, part of this ecosystem. Now, we've got this room for the plenary sessions, and just around the corner in what we call the Sigma room, we have more academic discussions running in parallel through the course of the next few days as well. So please keep an eye on the program. What you don't have on the program, perhaps, is the Wi-Fi code for anybody who needs access to Wi-Fi. So it is Space Resources Week 2026, and the password is SRW, capital letters, SRW at 2026. As always, we have posters, wonderful research work being done, and they are on display in the corridor on the way here. You will have walked past them already, so please do visit the posters, talk to the researchers and the people who are behind those posters. There's 86 of them in total, and a huge amount of work there. And tonight, there'll be even more opportunity nurtured by a little bit of cocktail drinking at 6 o'clock onwards to discuss the posters as well. So my job is really to sew everything together. It is really a great honor to be your host once more for Space Resources Week here in Luxembourg. However, the main host is Kathryn Hadler and her team from ESRIC. So please welcome Kathryn to the stage.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Moyen, good afternoon, and welcome to Space Resources Week 2026. On behalf of the organisers, Luxembourg Space Agency, Luxembourg Institute of Science and Technology, the European Space Agency, and of course ESRIC, the European Space Resources Innovation Centre, I'd like to welcome you all to Lux Expo and to our conference this year. As Lisa has already mentioned, we have a huge conference this year. We have only over 490 registrations at last week, so we expect it to be more now. This is our biggest conference to date. We have representatives from 35 countries. We have delegates from space agencies, research and innovation, entrepreneurs, startups, industry, from lawyers, policymakers, and all of the people that make up our space resources community. We have 20 sponsors this year, and I'd like to thank the sponsors for their support. There's over 100 talks, I think it's about 105 talks over the next 3.5 days, 15 business pitches, loads of posters, over 80 posters out in the entrance, as Lisa's already said, but also I'm really delighted that the tech demos are back this year. It was our first time last year, they are back. They will be just outside this area here. We had over 250 abstracts. Again, this is a record, and these were reviewed by our expert committee, so I'd like to thank those. You can see their names on the screen. I'd like to thank them for their time in reviewing our abstracts. The program that you see really reflects the balance of the abstracts that we received, and I hope you will enjoy the mix of talks that we have. The Space Resources Week launched officially on Saturday with the professional course. There was 40 people. They gave up their weekends for a pretty intensive deep dive covering all things space resources. And this was led, as always, by the enthusiastic Angel Madrid of Colorado School of Mines and his team of expert speakers from the UN, from LSA, from ESRIC and ESA. We also had 40 early career researchers this morning at the symposium and networking event. Once again, I'd like to thank our 20 sponsors for their support in our event. You will find them out in the exhibition, so please do go and talk to our sponsors. It's great to be back at Lux Expo. This was the site of the first Space Resources Week in its current form. It was my first time to Luxembourg when I came to Space Resources Week in 2019. It was super exciting. It was a conference like I'd never been to before. It was so vibrant and exciting, and Luxembourg was really lovely too. Fast forward 7 years, and I'm proud to call Luxembourg my home, and I hope you will find the conference that we've put on for you this week as being engaging, as dynamic as I found it all those years ago. And I was reflecting on this a little, and I found this picture from 2019. So this was the first one on this site. And indeed, what you can see on this picture, everybody looks pretty happy. So they were clearly enjoying themselves. But also, you will see a lot of familiar faces in this picture, just a few to pick out of this lineup. Look, there we can see Clive Neal. As always, Angel, there you go, waving in the background. We've got Philip Rice from TU Munich. There's Jim Caravala of Offworld, standing nonchalantly at the front, as usual. And you'll always find a lawyer at the front of the picture. There's Antonino Salmeri, right at the front. I was there. I can assure you that I think that's me at the back. I'm not entirely sure. Apologies if it's you, but I think that might be me. But the reason I show you this picture is there's one face that caught my eye in this picture, here. This person, front and center, is Jerry Sanders. Many of you will know Jerry from this event, from other events, from his more than 25 years at NASA working in space resources, from his knowledge and expertise. Well, I'm delighted to say that today is Jerry's first official day at ESRIC as part of the team. And so I would like to welcome him to ESRIC. The team that that Jerry has joined, we continue on our mission to be a world-leading centre of expertise in space resources. And we do this with our research, with the infrastructure we're building up, with our support for early-stage ventures and our community activities such as this. While Jerry's still familiarising himself with everything that we do, all the great work we do at ESRIC, I have a team of more than 30 people who are here who would be more than delighted to talk to you about what we do. You will also find them in these talks, plus posters and many, many more. So all that's left is for me to say thank you for attending, welcome, and I hope you have an enjoyable Space Resources Week.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Kathryn. It was really wonderful to see that photo with so many faces who are still present here. And of course, that community is all of you, and it's growing. And welcome, Jerry. We all love you, Jerry. Next up, please welcome from the Luxembourg Ministry of Economy, Jacques Thill.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Luxembourg. Thank you all for joining us here at Lux Expo, the box, and of course also online. On behalf of the Government of Luxembourg and the Luxembourg Space Agency, it is a great honor for me to welcome participants from all over the world for the 2026 edition of the Space Resources Week. We are proud to have speakers from key international institutions and space agencies joining us on the program today. I like ESA, NASA, JAXA, the Australian Space Agency, as well as the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. I'm looking forward to this year's increased and intensive conference, whose agenda addresses the scientific, technological, economic, and regulatory dimensions of space resources, making it one-of-a-kind event worldwide. Dear guests, the 8th edition of the Space Resources Week is truly special. It celebrates not just one, but two key milestones: the 10th anniversary of spaceresources.lu, launched in 2016, and the 5th anniversary of ASRIC. Your presence here today to celebrate with us means us a lot. It is an acknowledgement on the strong development of the field since the beginnings of the Luxembourg initiative spaceresources.lu. It is also an acknowledgement of the role of Luxembourg has been playing in the space resources field on the global stage over the past years. The topic has been growing extensively, and its instrumental role for the future of human presence in space is now recognized by all international players. Spaceresources.lu was a trailblazing initiative led and supported by the Government of Luxembourg. It is today high on the agenda in Luxembourg and internationally. The first crewed lunar flyby in 50 years happened just a few weeks ago. NASA unveiled its renewed ambition for the lunar surface, with space resources playing a key role. JAXA is working towards its lunar cruiser, a pressurized crewed lunar rover supporting long-term surface exploitation. Blue Origin is landing in Luxembourg and working towards mapping the lunar resources with the REASIS mission and in partnership with ASTRIC and GomSpace. We are all together paving the way to the moon and getting closer to its resources. Exciting historical times are ahead. This double anniversary is more than just a proud look at the past. It is about using what we have accomplished to lay the groundwork for the next decade. That's what this year's conference is about, reflecting on what has been achieved so far and on how far the community has come and setting the basis to achieve what we aim to accomplish in the next years. Before concluding my speech and leaving the floor to Mr. Mogensen, let me thank the organizers, in particular, of course, ASRIC. I would also like to confirm today the space sector remains a national priority for the Luxembourg government. We are committed to pursuing an ambitious investment and industrial policy for the sector. The space campus and the test center that we will start building in the coming month are testimony in its long-term engagement towards the space sector. Luxembourg wants to remain a key player, particularly in the space resources sector. I wish you all fruitful exchanges and a great time here in Luxembourg, and that you will discover Luxembourg also and have the opportunity to see the city. Thank you all very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Jacques. And next up, as has been alluded to already, we have our ESA astronaut, Andreas Mogensen, who is also Human Exploration Group Leader. Please welcome him to the stage.
Well, good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here. I am, as I was introduced, an astronaut, but also the team leader of our Human Exploration Group at ESA, which means I lead most of the activities that occur at the European Astronaut Center in Cologne, Germany, and also the operations that occur in our incredible new lunar analog facility, Luna, which I hope many of you have had a chance to see or will have a chance to see in the not too distant future. Luna hosted the Space Resources Challenges last year and will host it again this year. It is really an impressive facility, and when you stand and look out at the surface, well, it's the closest to actually walking on the lunar surface, I think. So yeah, I hope you all have a chance to visit someday if you haven't already. This afternoon, I want to give you a very brief overview of the European lunar exploration program that we are putting together at ESA. But first of all, let me say that space resources is an important area of collaboration between ESA and LSA. Of course, highlighted in principle by the European Space Resources Innovation Center here in Luxembourg. Space resources is a part of our lunar exploration program, or elements of it, and hopefully by the end of my short speech, you'll have an idea of where we are going in Europe and at ESA. But before I get to that, let me start off with a short video to get us all excited and in the mood for this week. Is there sound? Is it possible to turn on the sound? Well, let me first of all congratulate my NASA colleagues on a tremendous achievement. I'm sure all of you were as inspired as I was sitting at home, following along, and seeing humans once again venture to the moon. I'm proud that Europe also played a small role in the mission via the European Service Module, and it's clear that ESA hopes to continue playing a role in future Artemis missions. But it's also clear that there exists some uncertainty and that we are in a new context in exploration, meaning that we in Europe need to take stock, realign, and ensure that our posture represents European goals and priorities. And this is a significant strategic change, I would say, where self-determination is key. We are not in a competition mode. This is not a question of competition versus collaboration, but simply defining European goals and priorities for our European benefit. And then designing capabilities that do not exclude Europe from being a valuable partner in the future. And it's, as I said, it's clear that we want to continue collaborating on Artemis. But that all starts with defining European goals and priorities and defining a program of exploration that meets that. I know low Earth orbit isn't part of this conference, but I think it's worth mentioning that our program of exploration also looks at areas for European autonomy in low Earth orbit, including potential European autonomous access to LEO, and potentially also European-led destinations in low Earth orbit. The same is true for lunar exploration, where we are now looking for European autonomy to achieve our goals and priorities. Looking at the international context, we see international partners and commercial partners really accelerating, and we can expect even more landers in the coming years. And here the European Argonaut is a key priority for Europe. Argonaut will, at least according to the plans that have been published so far, be one of the larger landers, uncrewed landers. It goes without saying that any crewed lander is outside the scope of this chart. But for robotic landers, Argonaut, with its 3.5 tons landed mass, including 1.5 tons of payload, is a significant capability and therefore also a significant priority for us here in Europe. But to summarize our exploration strategy, it can be summed up with an end-to-end robotic autonomy without any critical dependencies, and then the provision of enabling capabilities for human surface presence. And if we look in detail at some of the capabilities and some of the architecture priorities that we are looking at, it includes the full scope of autonomous access to the surface via the Argonaut lander to deploy robotic payloads, but also potential human elements such as habitats, for instance. And it's clear here that they will be very much in collaboration with NASA, which will lead most of the, or all of the, at least initial human landing and surface asset deployments. But what's important for Europe is that we look at reversibility and reusability up front when designing any mission element in order to mitigate risk. And just very quickly to highlight some of the pillars that we're working with, it is really the full spectrum from launch to surface asset deployment, including key services such as communication, navigation, and remote sensing, and then in particular interest to the ISRU community, power and night survivability, and of course deployment of payloads and utilization, including technology demonstrations. We have already released various ITTs, including a lunar architecture study. And here I would encourage all of you to look at partnering with industry in order to influence some of these architecture studies that will be submitted to ESA. As I said, Argonaut is one of our key priorities. We are looking at a launch in 2030 with 2 robotic demonstrator payloads to demonstrate both mobility, but also to demonstrate manipulation and dexterity. We also have several payloads, most prominent among them, Prospect, for looking at lunar resources and to perform prospecting on the surface of the moon. I'm told that there should be a 1-to-1 scale model at the ESA booth. I didn't see it when I walked in, but hopefully either later today or in the coming days, you'll be able to see a 1-to-1 scale model of Prospect, which will be able to extract regolith samples from down to a meter's depth. Plan is to launch Prospect on Intuitive Machines Mission 4 in 2027 in partnership with NASA. I also very quickly want to highlight the Space Resources Challenge. As I said, last year we had one on beneficiation held at the Luna Analog Facility. This year's Space Resources Challenge will focus on construction. It'll also take place at our Luna Analog Facility in Cologne, Germany. In addition to landing surface elements, we are also very much interested in understanding the lunar environment, and we have several small missions coming up, including the Magpie rover, but also several orbiter missions that'll characterize the surface environment of the moon. We have launched a new exploration science website. This QR code will lead you there. The exploration science website includes many of our calls, including a new lunar gravity parabolic flight campaign, and several other calls that you might be interested in. So I encourage you to look at this website and to look at any of these calls and respond to them as appropriate. And that's what I wanted to share with you. It was just a very, very brief overview of our lunar exploration plans here in Europe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andreas. Thank you very much. And moving now from ESA to NASA, please welcome to the stage Edgar Castro, who's going to talk about NASA's moon base igniting progress.
I don't think there's anything I can say that would add to that video. Just, it's an opportunity for me to tell you guys to take a moment and think about where you are today, and that happened exactly one month ago. As a matter of fact, on Thursday, if I have my days right, will be the time in which we're actually reaching the backside of the moon. So 1 month from today, we're in transit, or 1 month ago, and then we'll see the backside on Thursday afternoon. We'll have to go celebrate and have a great time. But I wanted to start off with that video to inspire us on the journey that we're in to the moon and what we're going to go do from where we are today, which is where all of you are hopefully here to figure out what is our contribution of our generation in the time that's going on. I know we have several young professionals, we have companies, we have industry, we have academia, everybody playing a critical role for that. So let me guide you through what NASA has recently rolled out. Hopefully you've seen our moon base ignition plan. We have a new administrator, and the new administrator reflected back into what was our approach to exploration and said, you know what? The tempo is not right. The long-term alignment of what we're trying to go do needs something a little more powerful to show us what what state are we trying to go accomplish for the moon? So he said, we're building a moon base. We hadn't been talking about the moon base. We had been talking about going back to the moon. We had talked about Artemis 3, Artemis 4. But he's putting in our head, what does that mean? What does that mean to all of us and in our roles of getting there and what we're going to go do there? So imagine this future that is not that far away, where we'll have pressurized rovers, we'll have habitat modules, we'll have astronauts in new suits, we'll have power stations, we'll have to go deal with distribution of resources, we'll be having to bringing in new resources, power, survive the night. All of that is happening in our future vision of a moon base. Now the administrator said, hey, let's increase the tempo. Artemis 1 happened 3.5 years ago. It took us 3.5 years to get to Artemis 2. And we had been talking about Artemis for a long time before that. That cadence was not what is getting all of us engaged in the way we need to get engaged. So we laid out a plan, and the plan said we're going to go approach this moon base in phases. And we're going to have, and these are not phases that are long-term ideas and architectures. Phase 1 is 2 years. And in phase 1, our focus is going to be, let's get that initial setup of what we need to go do with a higher cadence of landings, right? So the next chart will show you a little bit more what I'm talking about, just what that higher cadence is, but we're gonna be putting some elements on the surface. And then when we put those elements on the surface, they won't be perfect, but they're gonna give us opportunity to go test out some technology gaps that we have, and we're gonna be able to go start getting our cadence up. I'll tell you, I'm already having this problem in my own organizations where we start asking for, hey, what's the roadmap? What are the requirements? How do I certify this thing, and what is that all going to look like? And we're asking for proposals. Here's a 2-year proposal. Here's a 3-year proposal. That is not the environment we're trying to create, or he's trying to create. That environment that we're talking about is, what do you have that you've been working on the lab that you're willing to go send up on a launch vehicle that may not make it, on a lander that may not land upright, and then your payload is going to have some risk associated with it. And that risk is something you need to get comfortable with taking. And so that challenge is on us, not just in the technologies that we're developing, but how we're approaching risk and how we're approaching an attitude that says, I may fail, my payload may fail, but you're going to give me an opportunity to go and try again at a higher tempo. If you saw what happened in some of our initial lander missions that we've already had through the CLIPS program, they didn't make it. The lander's on its side, and so some of those elements have now gotten moved to the follow-on flight. So I think it will be a change for us to go look at these initial 2 phases. Phase 2 is going to be about, hey, let's go start sending our astronauts there, and we're going to get our landings to take place. We're going to go further refine how some of these elements might work together, all in preparation for phase 3, which is permanent presence. So we'll do some sorties in phase 2, which is the next 2 years, right? So we're going to go put initial elements up, work on closing some technology gaps, working on putting some high criticality demonstrations out, and then we're going to go put humans there and get them operating in sorties. And then phase 3 is going to be our phase where we have permanent presence. In that model, I hope that model gets you excited about the future, because it means that our opportunity to reflect on this generation and what we're doing today, to be able to say, some of my hardware is on the moon. Some of my science is on the moon. I was part of that. And that's why that previous video, that was not an AI-generated video, this is reality, this is today. And it super excites me to know that that's going on, and that what we're laying out here is going to put us on several landers, robotic landers, proving out technologies, your hardware, your science, your partners doing that. And that is, to me, the excitement and the opportunity that this new program is bringing for us. This next chart is going to look like science fiction. It's going to look like an AI-generated chart. But can you imagine that kind of future? Look at those number of launches. Look at those number of planned landings. And where you might think, okay, that's not what you're going to do. The tempo is too high. You don't have the budget for all of that. We've had several RFIs, requests for information going out. The motivation that exists on this plan is really to try to take advantage of economies of scale, putting out several lander missions on contract to have that tempo going, with the requests that then go out. What ideas do you have? What technologies do you need to go prove out? What systems would you like to mature? And getting those into those launch opportunities at that cadence. Can you imagine a future where we're landing 20 things on the moon a year? That's what we're talking about. Our mentality has to change about how we approach this opportunity. It is our opportunity right now to go play in that game. And so I'm super excited about the tempo. I'm super excited about the technology. And when we put that long-term objective in mind of a moon base, there's this particular document that you saw listed up front will show you, well, it points you to our architectural definition document, NASA's document that says, here are the gaps that exist. These are the things that I don't know. There's a lot of prospecting questions that are out there that I'm sure several of you are excited about, the opportunities on that. Okay, I don't know who that is, but find me later. And thank you. So prospecting, are the simulants we're making representative in this new region of the moon that we're going to go to? Are they right? I've got it working in the lab. I don't know if it's going to be if it's representative. Let's go talk about that. Let's go, hey, what am I doing about surviving the night? What am I doing about dust messing up my mechanisms? What am I doing about this right now? This phase is the opportunity to go do that. Guided by those gaps, guided by those knowledge gaps, guided by those technology gaps and science opportunities that are out there. So I'm super excited about where I am today, where I am in my career, where I am with my partners and people that I've collaborated with for several years, and the opportunity to put hardware together, put missions together, put science instruments together, and fly them in the next several years that are in front of us, culminating with our moon base. At the end of this phase, what comes after that? We get to talk about Mars, and we get to go talk about the technologies that further get developed during our time on the moon, and other technology endeavors that we're taking on for Mars, and that'll bring us to our next step. Today, here, we're talking about the moon. Thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to meeting you guys.
Thank you, Edgar. Thank you very much. Now, actually, next up, and I know it hasn't been easy for everybody to get here, so thank you for everybody who has made the effort to come to Luxembourg. Not everybody could make it here, and one of those people is Enrico Palermo from the Australian Space Agency, but we do have a video message.
Distinguished guests, colleagues, partners, friends, it is a pleasure to join you in Luxembourg for Space Resources Week, an event that has become central to global conversations annually about how humanity explores, utilises and sustains its presence beyond Earth. Since 2018, this forum, led by Luxembourg and the Luxembourg Space Agency in partnership with ESA, has brought together governments, industry, researchers and innovators committed to the responsible and sustainable use of space resources. Australia is proud to be part of this community. We come to Luxembourg not only as a participant, but as a long-standing space partner, a signatory to the Artemis Accords, and a nation investing seriously in the capabilities needed to return to the moon and stay there. In 2020, Australia became one of the founding signatories to the Artemis Accords, helping to establish the principles that underpin a safe, transparent, and cooperative approach to lunar exploration and beyond. The Accords are more than a diplomatic framework. They are a statement of intent that returning to the moon will be international, rules-based, and enduring. For Australia, Artemis aligns deeply with who we are as a space nation. For more than 60 years, Australia has proudly supported humanity's ventures beyond Earth, most famously during Apollo, and today through continuous support to NASA's Deep Space Network. Artemis is a continuation of that legacy, but also a step change from exploration of the moon to sustained operations on the moon. Earlier this month, the world watched as Artemis 2 carried astronauts around the moon for the first time in more than 50 years, testing systems, proving readiness, and capturing images that reminded us of just how fragile and extraordinary our planet and our moon are. Congratulations to NASA, the European Space Agency, Canadian Space Agency, and all international partners that made it happen. And Australia was there for that mission. The CSIRO, Australia's National Science Agency, operates the Canberra Deep Space Communication Complex, one of just 3 stations worldwide that form NASA's Deep Space Network. From Canberra, Australian teams helped keep astronauts connected throughout their journey around the moon and back to Earth. CSIRO's Parkes radio telescope, Murayang, also supported the mission by passively tracking Artemis 2 as part of an expanded commercial government ground station network. At the same time, with support from our agency, researchers from the Australian National University conducted a pioneering optical laser communications demonstration, supporting NASA's first attempt to use laser communications on a crewed deep space mission, an important step toward higher bandwidth communications for future lunar and Mars missions. Together, these contributions show how Australia supports Artemis is not just a single technology, but with a system of capabilities, communications, operations, and advanced research that enable missions to succeed. And Artemis 2 did something else that matters deeply. It reminded a new generation that humans are returning to deep space not as a one-off, but as a program with momentum and purpose. That intent was reinforced only weeks ago at NASA's Ignition event, where NASA set out a clear and ambitious direction. The goal is no longer flags and footprints, the goal is to stay. At Ignition, NASA articulated plans for a permanent, enduring presence on the moon, using phased deployment, international and commercial partnerships, and infrastructure that supports repeated human and robotic missions. This matters to the global community and to Australia, because a permanent lunar presence is not the end state. It is a launchpad for deeper exploration of the solar system, for science at unprecedented scale, and for demonstrating technologies and systems needed for Mars and beyond. Australia is matching this international ambition with targeted national investment, focusing on areas where we can make unique, valuable contributions. One example is Fleet Space Technologies' SPIDER payload. With support from the Australian Space Agency's Moon to Mars initiative, Fleet Space has developed SPIDER, a seismic instrument designed to study the moon's subsurface and search for resources such as water ice at the lunar South Pole. SPIDER is scheduled to fly aboard Firefly Aerospace's Blue Ghost Mission 2, making it the first Australian-designed payload to conduct geophysical exploration on the moon. This is not just about science, it is about enabling future infrastructure, habitation, and in-situ resource use. Another example is Australia's investment in lunar mission operations. Through the Space Infrastructure Fund, the Australian Government has co-invested in the Spark facility in Western Australia, a world-class space automation, AI and robotics control centre operated by Fugro. Spark is already supporting lunar missions and is designed to run complex robotic operations on the moon and other planetary surfaces. These capabilities, remote operations, exploration technology, automation, robotics, are essential for operating safely and economically in harsh lunar environments. They also illustrate how lunar exploration drives benefits back to Earth, from mining and energy to disaster response and advanced manufacturing. At the centre of Australia's lunar ambitions is RUVA, our first lunar rover. RUVA has been designed, built and operated by the ELO2 Consortium, a national partnership of around 20 Australian companies, universities and research organisations, with backing from the Australian Space Agency. The rover will fly to the moon aboard NASA's CT4 mission under the Commercial Lunar Payload Services, or CLPS program, later this decade. Its mission is to analyse lunar soil, supporting global efforts to demonstrate technology is critical for sustainable human presence, including resource utilisation and surface operations. The Australian Government is investing $42 million to deliver RUVA from design through to lunar operations because we see it as a foundational capability. RUVA is a concrete demonstration of how mid-sized space nations can contribute meaningfully to global exploration when we work together. Finally, I want to recognise Luxembourg. Luxembourg has shown global leadership in space resources through policy, innovation, investment, and the creation of forums like Space Resources Week that bring this community together. Australia values our strong relationship with Luxembourg, including between our space agencies, and the shared emphasis we place on responsible, sustainable, and commercially viable space activity. So I congratulate the Luxembourg Space Agency, ESRIC, and all partners involved in delivering this week's program. The conversations happening here on resources, technology, law, and cooperation are not theoretical. They are shaping the architecture of humanity's next great chapter in space. Australia looks forward to continuing this journey with Luxembourg, with Europe, and with our Artemis partners around the world. Thank you, and I wish you all a successful Space Resources Week 2026.
Thank you to the Australian Space Agency there. And now from JAXA, we do have with us Jun Shimada, who is going to share Japan's lunar ISRU mission objectives and much more as well. Jun.
Check. Can you hear me? All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jun Shimada from JAXA. I'm a technical lead for ISO research at the agency. Well, you know, the most important resource in the universe is human. So it's always my great honor to be here sharing my stories with all of you. So thank you for making this happen. This is what I'm going to cover today. I want to start sharing the latest updates on Japanese space activities. Well, 2 years ago, Japanese government established the Space Strategy Fund, which is a $7 billion national investment program designed to stimulate domestic space economy. The overarching goal is to double the size of domestic space market in 10 years, from $30 billion to $60 billion. This drawing illustrates a flock of planes, which captures the core philosophy of the fund. As the old saying goes, if we want to go far, go together. This chart summarizes how it works. The fund was jointly created by 4 ministries of Japanese government, and JAXA assumes responsibility for long-term strategy development and grant allocations. Grantees utilize this fund for technology and business development. As of today, $4.6 billion were already granted to 190 projects. But it should be noted, budget allocation to lunar resource prospecting and utilization is quite limited. It's critically important for us to prove the value of space resources so that we can encourage government and private investments in space resources. That's where LUPEX comes in, lunar pole exploration. JAXA will send a 350-kilogram class rover to the South Pole region to investigate water ice resources. Technically, we will demonstrate long-distance travel over loose soil and overnight survivals on the lunar surface. This is a joint mission with Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO. They provide a lander for the mission. LUPEX is planned to be launched in a few years from Tanegashima Space Center in Japan. Total launch mass of the integrated system, including Indian lander, is 6 metric tons. Mission duration would be 3.5 months. That could be extended to 12 months as extra success. The LUPEX rover has multiple mission instruments on board, including NASA's neutron spectrometer and ESA's exospheric mass spectrometer. Let's take a look at the mission sequence after landing. Our plan is to investigate the lesion of interest using a neutron spectrometer and other instruments on board while the rover is moving around. Once we found potential icy regolith below the surface, the rover drills a hole to collect samples using a clamshell, which is installed on the tip of the drill. The drill can reach at 1.5 meters below the surface at its maximum, designed to collect samples at 25 centimeters pitch to acquire vertical distribution data. And samples are transported to a water analyzer for analysis of volatile gas composition and for quantifying the water content in the generated gas. Well, that's a brief description of the LUPEX mission, and needless to say, this mission is a key milestone towards future lunar exploration. Through a lens of sustainability, space resource utilization plays a vital role to establish long-term human presence on the moon, considering the transportation costs of consumables such as water, oxygen, and propellant construction materials. Given the limited budget and human resource, our research team mainly focuses on in-situ production of propellant, setting the target to produce 60 tons of liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen from icy regolith. When I joined the ISL team almost 6 years ago, I realized the importance of defining system requirements as a whole plant system, taking account of constraints such as payload capacity, power consumption, and construction operation, which enables us to flow down top-level system requirements to subsystem level or component level to formulate long-term R&D strategies and implement them. Which is the reason I reshaped the agency's approach from bottom-up to top-down, giving a priority to integrated systems design of lunar ISL plant systems. This is a long-term technological roadmap toward full-scale plant production. I'm not going to get into the details, but basically there are 3 major steps to take. Ground demonstrations in 2020s, sub-scale lunar demonstration in 2030s, and gradual scale-up and feature extension in 2040s. We formulated R&D strategy in cooperation with experts across the agency and the industry partners. This is who we are. We are closely cooperated with private companies, including JGC, Chiyoda Corporation, and Kurita Water Industries to investigate the technical feasibility of lunar propellant production. I will skip these slides because these are a quick recap from last year's presentation. And most recently, we started integrated system design for ISL gland demonstration. We set the target to annually produce 340 kilograms of water and 150 kilograms of oxygen from regolith stimulant. The ultimate goal of this demo is to verify the feasibility of end-to-end integrated ISL systems, including 3 elements: water extraction, purification of extracted water, and water electrolysis. And we completed a preliminary design of ISL ground demonstration plant, which made us ready to transition to the critical design phase this year. And our intention is to achieve initial operational capability by the end of 2028. Well, considering limited flight opportunities, it's vital to identify core technologies which has to be demonstrated on the moon. And at the same time, we need to develop integrated ISLU systems to raise technical readiness levels as one unified set of elements. Shifting gears a little bit, I guess many of you participated in the IAC last year in Sydney. And I organized a panel discussion as part of Global Networking Forum focusing on the intersection of terrestrial mining and space resource utilization. Inviting panelists from mining industry, academia, and the public sector, we discussed the challenges and opportunities from technical and commercial perspectives. I deeply appreciate Kathryn's participation and co-sponsorship from ESLIC. And for those who came to see this event on site, thanks for your attendance. You are part of us. And space exploration is not just about hardware or software, it's always about people. So I firmly believe raising awareness of ISLU is important to attract talented and enthusiastic people from various backgrounds. That's the reason why I put my effort into diversifying our research activities. Let's think about what's going to happen when ISLU meets something new. A good place to start is plant engineering. When it comes to risk analysis of space systems, engineers might use FMEA and FTA, which are traditional methods. And JAXA and the JGC Corporation investigated application of HAZOP, which is process-oriented risk analysis technique, which has been applied for decades in terrestrial plant engineering to verify the design of LNG plants. We are trying to establish a tailored risk analysis technique for ISLS systems by combining best parts of existing methods. And quantum computing. I initiated a research program to investigate the applicability of quantum computing and AI technology for in-situ propellant production. It may sound futuristic, but I learned that quantum technology has huge potential to accelerate ISL activity in some cases, which require very large number of computations, like catalyst development. How should we call it? In my sense, quantum resource utilization could be a nice option, but let's figure out. And content creation for education. I have been involved in school kids education for many years, trying to seek the best possible way to inspire next generation. I asked professional creators in Japan if we can make a content featuring space resource utilization. This is what we got after 2 years of co-creation. Using wall of warehouse at JAXA's Tsukuba Space Center, we created a projection mapping content. And on a public day, more than 2,000 people, including school kids, came to see our mapping content. They visually understand what space resources are and how to utilize them. I think that's something special because it could inspire future engineers and scientists in the field of space resources.
All systems are go for launch. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Main engine start. Lift off.
Well, this is basically what we are doing. So please stay tuned on JAXA's LoopX mission and ISLU technology development. If we want to go far, let's go together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jun. Thank you so much for your wonderful energy as well. Now, we do have another video message next. It's from Aarti Holla-Maini, the Director of UN Office for Outer Space Affairs. So we'll just watch this video, and then we have Rosanna from UNOSA also. But first of all, Aarti.
Dear colleagues, it's a pleasure to address the 8th edition of Space Resources Week. My thanks to the Government of Luxembourg, the Luxembourg Space Agency, and ESRIC for inviting me, and I'm sorry that I cannot join you in person. I have now been following Space Resources Week for 3 years, and in that time we've seen different missions go to the moon or around the moon, and with each one we have to realize that space resource activities are getting closer and closer to becoming a reality. If we are to maintain a sustained and sustainable presence on the moon and in deep space more generally, then we will need to be able to extract and utilize space resources in situ. But as every respectable miner will tell you, technology and funding can only go so far. Given the inherent global nature of space as a medium that does not belong to any individual actor, international law, cooperation and coordination will play a crucial role in the success of space resource activities. And that is where COPUS, the United Nations Committee on the Peaceful Uses of Outer Space, comes in. For more than 60 years, this committee has been the keeper of one of humanity's greatest collaborative achievements, the regime of international space law. It has firmly guided generations of scientists, engineers, diplomats, and explorers by developing solid rules that have successfully enabled and governed our collective journey into the cosmos. The world is now, however, a far more complex place than it was 60 years ago when the Outer Space Treaty entered into force back in 1967. As we come closer to that milestone, we need to remember the power of anticipatory diplomacy and the shared vision of peace and cooperation that it took to enable its extraordinary achievements since then. It will take a similar shared vision and ambition to create the right framework for space resource activities to grow sustainably. If we get it wrong, or worse still, if we fail to deliver, then space resource activities have the distinct potential to destabilize the peaceful and cooperative use of space that we have enjoyed for the last 6 decades. And this is where UNUSA, the United Nations Office of Outer Space Affairs, comes into the picture. In addition to being the only office within the UN system solely dedicated to space affairs, we are also Secretariat to COPUOS. It is down to us to support member states in operationalizing and evolving international space law so that it can remain fit for purpose over time. Through our Global Space Law project, we are assisting emerging spacefaring nations in drafting national space law and policy to provide legal and regulatory certainty as the basis not only for safety and sustainability, but also for future investment. There are 2 main work streams within COPUOS that are relevant to space resources. The first one is the working group on the legal aspects of space resources, which is set to finalize and agree on a set of initial recommended principles to govern the conduct of space resource activities by 2027. Those draft principles touch upon key issues, from ensuring safety and sustainability to balancing a wide range of potentially conflicting interests. And their goal is to implement the core principles of the Outer Space Treaty as they apply to space resource activities. These principles under negotiation are available online, and I invite you to review them and consider how they might impact your plans and share your views with your governments, who are the real decision makers within the committee. There will never be a better time to do this than right now, because the principles will be finalized and hopefully endorsed by COPUOS next year in June 2027. Secondly, the Action Team on Lunar Activities Consultation is firming up a list of core issues arising from new plans in lunar exploration, with the goal of developing recommendations on how to consult and coordinate lunar activities, including by potentially establishing an international mechanism. I don't think I need to tell you how relevant this work is to space resources, given that almost all space resource activities are planned to take place precisely on the Moon. To foster progress in this vital area, UNUSA has established a project called One Moon for All, through which we convene high-level, impactful, multi-stakeholder dialogues on lunar activities. It's under this initiative that we have, for the last 3 years already, been organizing the annual United Nations Lunar Conference. Last year, we focused on the commercial lunar landscape and policy needs, which provided a unique opportunity to connect COPUOS diplomats with industry players like so many of you here. So I invite you to engage with us at UNUSA about the project and take part in this critical dialogue. I'd also like to flag that it is our hope that next year COPUOS might hold the 4th United Nations Conference on Space, so-called UniSpace 4. In the past, these ministerial-level events have reshaped the governance of space as we know it, and with UniSpace 4, we don't intend to do anything less. This conference would be a pivotal moment to demonstrate renewed commitment to space multilateralism and deliver concrete results on key topics for our shared future in space, precisely on topics just like space resources. Over the years, I've seen so much expertise assembled in Luxembourg at Space Resources Week. Business visionaries, respected scientists, experienced engineers, and even space lawyers. But we need this wealth of expertise to answer some of the most difficult questions that humanity has ever had to consider. Thank you for having me with you here in Luxembourg. I know I was only there virtually, but I hope you have a great week ahead. I look forward to learning about the progress made, and in particular, to working together to enable peaceful, safe, and sustainable space resource activities for the benefit of all humanity. Thank you.
Thank you so much to Aarti. And now it's a pleasure to invite to the stage Rosanna Deim-Hoffmann, who's the lead for space law and policy with UNOSA. And for the people who are standing at the back, welcome, Rosanna, welcome. Yes? I'm not going to take away your time on the stage. I just can see some people standing at the back, and if you can't spot them, there's plenty of seats up here in the front, my left.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and hello, dear colleagues, dear friends. This is my second Space Resources Week here in Luxembourg, and I have to say, even though it's only my second edition that I'm here in person, it already feels like being back with the family, with a group of close friends, a lot of familiar faces. So yes, it's a pleasure being here. First and foremost, a big thank you, of course, to the organizers, to the government of Luxembourg, to Esrik, to ISA, List, and many more for bringing us together, for bringing this community together in person for the next few days. And you just heard some opening remarks, a keynote from my director, from my boss, Aarti Holla-Maini, the director of the United Nations Office for Outer Space Affairs. And I really don't want to repeat what she already said, but I want to maybe go a layer deeper on 2 points. One, the work that's currently being done within the working group on the legal aspects of space resource activities. And here with us in the room is Stephen Freeland, the chair of that working group, and you'll hear more from him tomorrow. But also another level, and that's really the national legal and regulatory level, the level where implementation is happening. And before doing any of that, however, maybe just one word, especially after seeing all of the innovative plans from NASA, from ESA, JAXA, the Australian Space Agency, and for sure the 80+ posters that are out there. Please don't see whatever I'm saying as something that will restrict or in any way hinder those plans, those activities, but see whatever we're going to be covering also at tomorrow's legal session as an enabler, as something that will create legal clarity, legal certainty for your activities and for investment in that activity. So we heard through the director's opening remarks that there already exists binding law when it comes to space activities, and space resource activities are space activities. They're no different than launching a satellite or operating a satellite. But of course, we see that there are some gaps here and there, gaps that we need to address on the one hand through the work being done at the UN and need to be addressed nationally, because really what makes space activities grow, what makes them safe, predictable, what makes them sustainable is legal clarity, the confidence that rules of the road exist. So the working group of the legal subcommittee, the working group on the legal aspects of space resource activities, as was already mentioned, has a 5-year work plan. And a 5-year work plan sounds like a long work plan, but in fact it's not. Already next year, and it gives me some anxiety, Stephen, looking at you, that we have 1 more year to in fact agree on a set of principles that will hopefully be applicable to the activities that you're planning, and applicable in a sense that they will really enable them. And as the UN office convening member states, but more and more so also convening commercial operators. The director mentioned our commercial lunar event that we held last December. It was really about also understanding your needs around this topic. As the UN office convening member states and commercial operators on this topic, we are really here to support and make that vision of principles possible. And they are there to provide a common baseline for states, for regulators, for operators, for academia, and especially in a field that is as capital intensive, from what I understand it is, and as long horizon as this one, I think a shared baseline is what matters enormously. So the latest draft, Aarti already said it, is available online. And when I say the latest draft, I really mean the latest draft. It's from the 28th of April. And even though I would say most of you are more from a scientific background than necessarily a legal and policy background, please do take a moment, look at the draft. Why? Because it's now important that you talk to your governments, and maybe you are a government, that you are involved in this process, especially as we are moving towards finding agreement on it. Now to the second aspect that I wanted to cover, and that was the national aspect. Aarti mentioned it. We have an initiative at the UN called the Global Space Law Project, where we advise states on how to draft their space law, their space policy, their space regulation. More and more, we're helping states understand space safety and sustainability. But something I've noticed, we've done 30 missions so far, and we've got 60 countries requesting these types of missions, is that space resource activities, and I know Antonino Salmeri is here somewhere as well. I think a few years ago we had a conversation about this, and back then it was not yet such a big topic, but I would say in the last 1 to 2 years, space resource activities is a continuous request we're getting from emerging spacefaring nations, from developing nations. They want to understand how they can include this in their national laws, how they can include this in their policy, how can they attract investment around these types of activities, how can they provide a legal, certain environment for their academia, for potential startups. So this is really something that we're seeing becoming receiving a momentum around the activities that we do at the UN. So I promise to keep it short, so I'll actually skip over a whole page of the need for national legislation and regulation, but I'll say one thing. It's through national legislation, regulation, that everything we're going to discuss at the policy part tomorrow afternoon gets operationalized. You heard the word before, I use it continuously, and if I just may say one anecdote, and Lisa, I know I'm over time, I just outside had someone approach me and said, well, aren't the treaties outdated? Aren't they, are they even being used? And in fact, it's today more than ever that they're being operationalized through space resource activities on the one hand, but other activities as well, and it's through national regulation and laws, such as the law in Luxembourg, that they do get operationalized and implemented. So thank you so much for having the UN present at this conference. And I will close just with a really small invitation. On the one hand, please engage with the working group, look at the principles, see how they will enable your activities, and engage with the UN when it comes to national legislation. If you know about member states asking the same questions I just mentioned to you, then point them to our direction. We're happy to help. So again, thank you for having us.
Thank you, Rosanna. Thank you so much.